Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here with Alex Vollmer, Daniel Palmer, and Lexi's over here taking a nap. And we're talking about Fiesta and law and our favorite events and some tips and tricks for navigating these events and having a good time. And because Lexi barked last segment, I wanted to talk about an event for dogs. I can't remember what it's called, the pup parade or something like that.
Pooch parade in Alamo Heights, yeah.
Yeah. And I looked it up. I'm not going to be able to go, but you said that they wear costumes, or maybe it was Cheryl talking to me about that.
Yeah, so yeah, they wear costumes, and people will sometimes make like little floats for them, or little what are they called, the little wagons, like they'll carry them in and decorate those, and it's just a funky, fun little event in the morning. I think it's on my birthday this year on the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's the same day as I think the King William Parade and the Fiesta Flambeau Parade. So that's usually a busy day for us.
They have King and Barkio instead of King Antonio.
Well, we didn't talk about the King William Parade. How is that different?
Yeah, so that's when we go to. We go to that one every year.
I love that parade.
It's the King William Fair and the parade, and we're fortunate because getting down there is almost impossible. But we have friends that live there, so we just hang out with them. But it's basically kind of like just a small-ish, community festival in the King William district, just south of downtown. They have a very small parade that goes through, and then they just have, kind of traditional fair events there.
But they have some really interesting, I like the King William Parade because it's got that flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I remember one year I went, they had the Lowrider Bicycle Club.
Mm-hmm.
Those were fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to be a member of that.
Yeah, right?
Because I grew up during the time when that was invented.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the 90s, at least in southern New Mexico. Almost everybody had a lowrider bike.
Really?
I didn't, but I wanted one then, and I still want one. So I
now you know where to go check it out.
Look that up, yeah.
We could start a bike club.
There is, I saw on the ordinance for San Antonio that there was something happening at the Alamo Dome. What is that? Is that like where they have rides and stuff?
Yeah, that's where they do. They do the big carnival downtown. So it's kind of like in the parking lot around the Alamo Dome.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like you do at the rodeo.
Yeah, it's very similar to the rodeo, but with better food.
Cool. So what is some fair food or fiesta food that you really like that you always go back to and want to see if you can find it?
Yeah.
Churros. You just can't go wrong with churros and coffee.
Yeah, that
Where
does
can I go
sound
get some
good.
churros?
Yeah.
Sorry we didn't have
No.
that for you. Maybe next year we'll have that set up for this.
I mean, chicken on a stick is kind of the classic.
Yeah.
Everybody gets that. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, the baked oysters, that's huge. Whether you like them or not, it's kind of a staple of Fiesta. But that's kind of the fun thing is that, I love getting like the really good Mexican corn. Like that's my personal favorite.
I've seen that. Yeah.
But there's new stuff every single time you go. New vendors. So it's an event every time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking about a lot of the events going on. And in the first segment, we talked about some of the crimes that occur and how to stay out of trouble. So we want to make sure that your legacy for Fiesta is not one of getting into trouble, but it's more of a legacy of we had a good time. Is there some tradition, family tradition, San Antonio tradition that you think should never change? That it's almost sacred?
There's a lot, but the first one that just popped into my head because I'm always the first one in my household that is saying, as soon as we hit April, I'm like, where are Fiesta wreaths? We have to get them ready, to put all over. And so my wife will typically make a new one every year. And so that's one that I love. And, Alex and I, live in the Alamo Heights area. And so we're fortunate that people celebrate hard in Alamo Heights for Fiesta. So, you drive down and you'll see Fiesta wreaths and Fiesta decorations on almost every single house.
Is that like what Bria brought to the office and hung on the door in the reception area?
I'm gonna have to see it, but if it's does it have like a bunch of streamers coming down off?
It's like a homecoming mum, but it's like bigger than life.
It'll basically look like a wreath made out of like cascarones and colors and streamers, and it'll look like a parade float. It'll look like, it'll have like colors from Battle of Flowers. It'll have the classic San Antonio Spurs Fiesta colors in it, Yeah.
And I think it's just, natural to start kind of getting in that, like I didn't remember picking out a Guayabera this morning. I think it just appeared on me because we're doing a Fiesta episode.
I'm just going to maybe second Daniel's Fiesta wreath and then just say, let's normalize Guayaberas in court during Fiesta.
Puerto Rico does it.
What is that?
This shirt.
We would like to be able to wear Guayaberas to court. So if any district court judges are listening, maybe talk to your fellow judges about that.
Yeah. Well, I think Hawaii is kind of similar in that.
Yeah. When I was in Puerto Rico, I met an attorney, and he told me that it's proper court attire in San Juan, Puerto Rico. As long as they're long sleeve.
Everybody'd pass out.
Yeah.
What I also noticed in researching the law for this episode is San Antonio has a lot of laws that are exceptions to laws because of the nature of the event being so big. One of them is there's a law that says if you're drinking at a festival, it has to be in a paper cup. But then there was another exception to the law that says during Fiesta, you can drink out of an aluminum can. And then another one was you can't smoke at the parade. Mm-hmm. All of these things kind of make sense, but special provisions had to be made, and city officials had to vote on all of this to make it effective.
Oh, sure. I mean, it affects the county too. I mean, Alex remembers the county. It closes. The courthouse essentially closes during the latter part of Fiesta because of the lack of parking.
Basically, if you end up in court Fiesta week, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, and
because if you go to jail, you have to stay there until the next week.
Not necessarily. I mean, as an attorney, if you end up in court during Fiesta week, like on anything serious, you did not anticipate. And you're probably in front of a judge that's not a lot of fun.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that, it's not that the judges aren't working and the county's not working. Yeah. It's that because of the lack of parking, we can't have jury trials.
Yeah.
And so because there's no jury trial set, it's basically a ghost town at the courthouse. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's usually, non-trial settings, minor things that are done. So everybody kind of tries to avoid, going to work and just enjoying Fiesta.
Yeah.
And
you'll
see
might as
judges
well, Oh yeah, no, they're still working for sure.
Yeah.
But to initiate something serious where you have to have people there all day, every day, on jury duty, you're going to run into a lot of problems. People aren't going to show up for jury duty, and it's pretty, you wouldn't want to do that to the citizens of Bexar County.
Yeah. And if you're in trouble because of the lack of participation in the system, nobody wants to work, it might be hard to get relief if you're down there.
I would say all of the critical infrastructure people, all of the officers, night mags, they increase during Fiesta. The problem is, so do the people they're processing.
Yeah.
That's the slowdown, is the amount, the sheer volume. It's like, you would have gotten out in 12 hours. Well, it's going to be 48, which is the max they can hold you anyway.
Because there's so many people getting into trouble.
You get in line.
Well, another variance in the law was to allow police officers that usually work in schools to help out during this time to be officers on the parade route, trying to keep people
Interesting
safe.
that they needed an ordinance for that. If they're T-close certified, I don't know why you'd need an ordinance. Anyway,
That's a good point. It did mention
T-close.
that you have to be certified.
Yeah.
But I guess to bring them out in the public, maybe because they serve in a special role in the schools.
Yeah, T-close is like a police officer's license. Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, something.
Something else is the trademark for Fiesta.
Oh,
Did you know that
It's registered?
right, the official Fiesta Commission has trademarked the word Fiesta for San Antonio, because they don't want unofficial type events confusing the public, I guess. Does that make sense to you?
Funny how we were just talking about how uncorporatized it is.
Yeah, no, it is interesting.
Except for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for that. And it is interesting because I was looking at the Fiesta website earlier, and, you had mentioned there's, I think, over 100 official Fiesta events. There's almost 300 unofficial Fiesta events that are listed. So, I mean, I get why they do it, it's, but I'm also glad that people are, taking advantage of all the folks coming in town and, boosting the local economy. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for us as estate planning attorneys, I think that it's important to have your documents in place, have a will or a living trust, have a power of attorney, because sometimes tragic, bad things happen. And if you're going downtown into a situation where people are drinking, that's a risk. And
I mean,
some people say, well, I'm going to do my will when I turn 55.
I've heard that.
Well, if you're going to put yourself and your family at risk by going to some entertaining event, you should prepare ahead of time.
Estate planning is just like investing. The right time to start was yesterday. I don't care what if you're over 18, if you have an estate.
Yeah, it's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah. It's not just about you.
And it's about your family, your kids.
Of course.
Naming a guardian.
Your spouse, who are you leaving holding the responsibility of, to me, the worst is what if something happens to you and you don't pass away, but you are incapacitated.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say powers of attorney are going to be incredibly important during Fiesta, and a medical directive is going to be incredibly important during Fiesta. I mean, God forbid, but
because nobody plans to be in an accident,
right? Well, like you say, it's a risk going to these events. It's a risk going to the corner store.
Yeah.
A small risk.
And something that we didn't really talk about, is driving around. Even if you're not drinking any alcohol, there's going to be other people that are drinking and driving.
That's the thing. That's the thing. That's like why my dad said it was always so dangerous to be on a motorcycle. You don't control the other drivers. You can be the most careful motorcycle driver in the world.
Yeah. You heard it here on Talk Law Radio. Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you've learned something. We'll talk to you later.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.